Okay, so what the heck is MLA format? I understand that some of us may not be as familiar with MLA format as others. So I'm going to go ahead and walk us through the basics of how to set up a document in MLA format, both in Google Drive or Google Docs and in Microsoft Word. Okay, but I'm going to start with Google Docs. So I've opened up a fresh document. So I want to pay attention to some of the key features of MLA format. So the first thing I want to look at is the margins. MLA calls for 1-inch margins on all four sides of the document. So top, bottom, left, right. All of them need to be 1-inch margins. Okay. So to figure that out, I need to look up at this top here. I see this kind of ruler looking band. It's numbered. And then I notice that there's another one over here on the side, the left-hand side. This grayed out area all the way up to this marker here is what the margin is. So you can adjust this, you can move it, but I'm going to leave it there because that is 1 inch, right? And then I notice that from the top of the document to this where the gray stops, that's 1 inch, and you notice that's where the cursor starts. So the top is 1 inch, the left is 1 inch. I notice over here that the right is 1 inch, and then the same with the bottom, it's 1 inch. So I don't need to change anything there. That's great. So the next thing I need to look at is the font style and size. So we notice here it's in Arial, but I want to change it to Times New Roman. Now MLA says that you could choose to use 11 or 12. I want us to use 12 though, so that everything is uniform, so that when I say 4 full pages, we're all dealing with the same 4 full pages. So change it to Times New Roman 12-point font. Now the next thing I want to pay attention to is the line spacing. So MLA calls for double spacing for the entire document. Okay, so not single space, not space and a half, not 2 spaces and a half, but double space. So up at the top on my toolbar, I have this icon where there are 3 lines and then a double-sided arrow. And then the little caption here says line spacing. I'm going to click on that. And I notice that the default there is 1.15, but that is not the right one. I want to go ahead and move it to double space. And there we go. So now my entire document should be double spacing. That's really great. So now I can begin what we call the heading. Okay. So the first, well, there are 4 elements to the heading. The first one is the writer's name. So in this case, since I'm the writer of this document, this is my document, I'm going to put my name. So then I press the return key to skip to the next line, and notice it's double spaced. And then normally we need to put the professor's name. So for you, you're going to put my name, but because this is my document, I'm just going to put Professor X. And then I skip down to the 3rd line by pressing the return key, and then I put the course. So this is English 100. And then the 4th component, press return to skip to the 4th line, I need to put the date. Now there are a couple things to pay attention to with the date. One is the format of the date, and then the other is what date to put. So the format is the international version. So we put the number of the month, we put the month, and then we put the year. So in this case I'm going to put well, actually, and then the date I put is not the date I started the document, but the date the document is due. Okay, so in this case, it's due the 7th of July, right? So I'm going to put a 7, so it's the number. Then I'm just going to press space, and then I'm going to type out the month, press space again, and then I'm going to put the year, 2020, a year that will go down in infamy. And there we go. So the essay is due July 7th, 2020, so that's how we format it. You notice I didn't put any commas, I didn't put like July, like 7, I didn't do that. It's just 7 space July space 2020. Okay. Now I can go ahead and skip down to my title line. So let's go ahead and creative title that alludes to essays focus. Now this is obviously for the sake of example. I want you guys to actually come up with a creative title that alludes to your essay's focus, but for the sake of this example here. So I need to center my title, so I'm going to go ahead and look up at the top. I have these alignment buttons. So this one is left, so you notice that everything's in line with the left margin. But I need the title to be centered, so I'm going to click the next one over, Center Alignment. So now it's centered. And then I'm going to skip to the next line. I'm going to move it back to left justification or left alignment. I'm going to press the Tab key, and now I can begin my essay. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so something else to pay attention to. You notice that I didn't I'm gonna move start my essay down there. You notice I didn't do that, and I didn't say I'm gonna pizzazz up my title a little bit. Let's make it like size 24. Oh yeah, that's cool. Oh yeah, let's make it like a cool color. This how about this blue? Alright, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't do any of that, right? MLA is all about getting to the point, saving space. So I'm going back. I didn't have any additional spacing. I didn't increase the font size or change the font color. It's just double spaced 12-point Times New Roman in the entire document. That also goes for between paragraphs. So say I skip to the next paragraph. It's a little paragraph. I didn't add like a couple spaces there. It's just double spaced, okay? So the entire document is double spaced. Now there's one last element to insert for this, and that's what we call the header. So there are a few different ways that you can do this in Google Docs. So you could double space or double click up here, and it'll then put you in the header option or the header field. But I like to go to the Insert tab and then scroll down. I'm not going to click on headers and footers. I know we're actually putting the header, but I'm going to go to page numbers instead. I find this to be a little bit easier. Page numbers, and then I need to find the one that matches what I need, which is I need my page number to be in the top right hand corner. So I'm going to click that one, and then you notice it put a little 1 because this is the first page number. Now my cursor is after the 1. I need to move it to the front, and then I'm going to type in my last name. So you would type in your own last name, but since this is my document, I'm putting my last name. I'm going to press the space key, and there we go. But I also need to make sure I change the font so it matches. So highlight that 12-point Times New Roman font. And there we go. So let me go ahead and show you how to do it in Microsoft Word. So Microsoft Word is a little bit more complicated, I find. I actually prefer Google Docs because it's pretty straightforward. But let's go ahead and take a look at Microsoft Word. So I open this as a fresh new document. The first thing that I'm going to do is the header. So I'm going to click the Insert button, and then I'm going to click header. Actually, I'm going to do the same thing with the page numbers because I want to make sure that it has the page numbers. So I'm going to do that. Now, apparently it's going to fill that in with the correct page number. I'm just going to have to trust it. I'm going to type in my last name there. I want to make sure that it is the correct font style, so I'm going to turn it to Times New Roman. Oh shoot. Yeah, like I said, I don't typically use Microsoft Word, so forgive me if I'm a little clumsy here. I find Google Docs to be much more straightforward. But anyway, so we click that to 12-point Times New Roman font. Now I can click out of this. Now my whole document, I want to make sure that my font is correct with that. So I'm going to go ahead and move it to Times New Roman 12-point. Now the next thing I want to pay attention to is my margins, right? So I want to make sure that the margins are correct. So I clicked on Layout, and then I have this button here for margins, and it looks like the normal margin setting is there, which is 1 inch on all 4 sides, so that's perfect. Don't need to change anything. So the next thing is my line spacing. I'm going to click on that here, click on line spacing, and then go to 2 for double spaced, right? Now something that Microsoft Word does that is a little bit annoying, but they do it anyway. I'm not really sure why. Is they add an additional space between when you skip a line. That for some reason they want to put like a half space between, so that's going to screw up your double spacing. And I'll demonstrate how that would do it. So I'm going to do my header. I press return to skip to the next line, and I don't know if you can notice this, but my spacing is bigger than double spaced here. Why is that? Well, it's because Microsoft Word does this, like I said, it does this weird annoying thing where it adds an additional space. So I'm going to go back to this little more options button, and then I'm going to click on paragraph options. So the spacing right here, you notice before a paragraph it has 0, so there's no additional space, but for some reason after it wants to put an 8-point space in between. So I need to correct that. I'm going to lower it to 0. Okay, and then press OK. And then there we are. Now that's double space. So it's really imperceptible if you're not really paying attention, but it does matter. It does make a difference. So you need to change that if you're using Microsoft Word. So now I'm ready to go to the next line for my title. And of course I need to center it, so I'm going to click on the text alignment button. So it's currently at left justified or left alignment. I'm going to click on center, skip to the next line, go back up, back to left, press the tab key. Now I can begin my essay. Oop, not Bing. Now I can begin. Blah 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 blah. All right. If you have any questions about this, you feel free to let me know. You can reach out and ask me. I'm going to post some additional resources for you guys so that you should be able to look at some examples. Most notable resource is going to be not Microsoft Word, Purdue's Online Writing Lab, or Purdue OWL. That's a really helpful website that has a lot of really up-to-date and straightforward MLA information. So. Alright, y'all. So like I said, if you have questions, just let me know.